So today is August 27th. Have we started recording yet? We started recording. This is the Planning Committee of Ashland County, Wisconsin. Today is Wednesday, August 27th. It's 1 p.m. and this is the beginning of the Planning Committee meeting. And to begin the meeting, we'd ask the roll to be called. Now, one reminder, please, first. Please, everybody speak into your microphones up front, not sitting way back here. Because it helps a lot for people to be able to hear, and it helps the recording. Because when you go to do the playback on the recording, if people's voices are way back here, it's hard to hear. Okay, thank you.
George Bousset.
Here.
Bradley Ray is excused. Elizabeth Franick. Elizabeth Franick online. Okay. Pat Kinney.
Here.
Gary Mertick.
Here.
Dan Grady is excused. Lissa Radke. Charlie Ortman.
Here.
Paul Wilharm.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so it appears we do have a quorum. That's 7 of our 9 committee members here. So the next item is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve? And once we get a motion, we can have discussion. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Mr. Ortman moves to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Wilhelm seconds to approve the agenda. Is there discussion on the agenda? Hearing no discussion, we vote on the agenda. All those in favor of accepting the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the agenda is approved. So we'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is for public comments. And we are open now for public comments, either online or in present. I see no persons present for public comment. We're asking to hear if there's anybody online for public comment. Do we see any telephone numbers or not seeing any public online or present? We'll leave public comment at this time and move on to approval of the prior meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion for approval of the prior hearing minutes?
Move to approve.
Mr. Ortman moves to approve the prior meeting minutes was July 21st. Is there a second, please?
Wilhelm will second.
Mr. Wilhelm seconds. Is there discussion? Being no discussion, we will vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Minutes are approved. Moving on to item number 5 on our agenda, we are now up to discussion items. Item 5A is little fun facts or favorite things about Ashland County. We'll go around the room, starting with Mr. Kinney. Any fun facts of the day? Microphone, please.
I don't have any fun facts today.
Lisa?
Of course, I have fun facts. There's a great newspaper article or an article in the Glidden newspaper. Wisconsin State Park Campground is rated one of the best in the United States. Any guesses? Copper Falls is number 10 best campsite in the United States, according to a national camping magazine, and 3rd best campgrounds in the Midwest by another campground magazine. So I thought that was cool. And then I'll pass this picture around. It's just kind of fun. It's from 1973. It is deputies of Ashland County. Officials are sworn into official duties. Apparently, I think it's the county board. It used to be called Ashland County Deputies in 1973. I don't know if that rings any bells, but I thought I'd just pass that around. It's fun. Maybe we know some of the people in that picture who are representing the county, 50 years ago.
Anybody else for fun facts? Mr. Murdick? No? Mr. Wilhelm, any fun facts?
I'll work on some for next time.
Erica, anything?
Sorry, I only have scary facts in my brain today.
Mr. Ortman.
My father used to run an engine on the top of the ore dock when the Carey mine was open in Ironwood area. And I think it's the one that's sitting in the across from the old depot. Yeah. Pretty cool. Thank you.
Autumn or Emily, have anything to say that's fun about Ashland County? No? Oh, you got to work on that. Bishop, you have anything to offer? You know, you can't, go.
So I work also in the zoning department, and we have issued the annual permit for the Northern Aged Iron annual event that happens every year out in Highbridge. And Lynn Brenneman told me that Discover Wisconsin has contacted them and will be doing another Uniquely Wisconsin video at their event. And so just keep promoting Ashland County.
Okay. I have, you don't know whether you can trust what you do on online research these days because, the AI summaries could tell you anything that might or may not be true. But this claims to be documented from the Library of Congress, dated January 1937. And it says that it's from the narrative of Mr. Leonard. Mr. Leonard worked for the Weyerhaeuser Lumber Company and managed log drives for them. He said, following breakup of the ice in the lakes and rivers, when sufficient water was in the dams, the drive would start. The camps and independent loggers inland along the tributaries of the main waterways would blast and peavy the logs from the rollways into the water and drive to the main lake or stream. Upon reaching Clam Lake, or the West Fork of the Chippewa River, all logs were turned over to the Chippewa Lumber and Boom Company Corporation, the Weyerhaeuser Corporation. The corporate drive on the West Fork covered about 160 miles from Clam Lake to Flambeau Farm. From this point, many logs went on rafts to La Crosse, Wisconsin, Winona, Minnesota, Clinton, and Dubuque, Iowa. So that's part of the history of that southwestern corner of Ashland County. And this is a story that maybe I'll bring up next time. Does anybody know what a wanigan is? A wanigan was a raft built of logs to go down river with the drive, and they were usually about 60 feet long and 18 feet wide. And you put a cook shack on one and a tent shack on another, and this was like the floating living quarters for the loggers that drove the logs downstream. So that's my fun fact for today. Any more fun facts? Thanks to artificial intelligence, yes. Okay, so going on beyond, we move on to item 5B, which is the working status of the Northwest Regional Planning Corporation to work with us. And these are the items requested by Emily Nelson, who we have the pleasure of having with us. So for this part of the meeting, I'm turning this over to Emily and letting you proceed with what you have to tell us.
Thank you. I'll start with an introduction. Emily, now voucher as of 2 weeks ago, a community development specialist with Northwest Regional Planning. I've been there for about 6 years. And then with me today,
I'm Autumn Tomey. I'm the assistant planner at Northwest Regional Planning. So I've been there in total just over 2 years, as in my position about 6 to 7 months.
And looks like my screen is sharing, but I wanted to begin by recognizing all the work that this committee has done already in preparing for the comprehensive plan update process. And the update is a little bit different than creating the original plan. The most extensive work was done in 2006, and then with the 2016 update, serving as a refinement to that 2006 plan. And now we're focusing on carrying that work forward and ensuring that the plan continues to serve as a useful guide for decision-making in the county. And since this is Northwest Regional Planning's first in-person facilitated meeting with the county, I'd like to start with an overview of the planning process. Some of you saw this earlier as part of a county board meeting this winter. But today we'll make sure everyone is starting from the same place. We'll walk through the update process and some of the protocols for that, a review of the timeline that we have, and then to clarify the committee's role and responsibilities moving forward in the plan update. So Wisconsin Statute 661001 is the Wisconsin Comprehensive Planning Law. It provides the framework for comprehensive planning in the state of Wisconsin. It requires communities to adopt a plan that looks ahead 20 years, and it is defined as a guide to the physical, social, and economic development of the county with an outlook of 20 years. The statute also emphasizes implementation, meaning the plan has to include programs and actions with measurable outcomes within it. And then to remain effective and legally compliant, the plan has to be updated at least once every 10 years. So that's why this update is so important. It ensures that the plan continues to be meaningful and legally supported as a guide for the county's decision-making. And then Wisconsin's, yes.
This committee is a standing committee as opposed to an ad hoc. Now, on that previous screen with updating every 10 years, one of the questions I have as we go through this planning process, what constitutes the plan having been updated? So let's say 3 years from now, there's a major issue that comes up, we come back to the comp plan a bit. Is there a certain criteria level that constitutes having been updated?
Within the statutes, there's nothing that defines what an update is, but at minimum, it must include the public participation plan adoption, and then the 30-day public comment period, as well as the public hearing, and then the resolution by this committee, and then that would go to the county board for adoption of an updated ordinance on the comprehensive plan. So there's a protocol, but not so much as what the content revisions have to include.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So does that mean at some point the board couldn't decide to modify a chapter or something
Yes, that's,
without a public hearing and all that, or could we have that done? And
it is not complete until that formal public participation process.
but we could change it and live by it and
Yes,
do
it's a
the
living document that could be
Okay.
continuously modified and should be reviewed continuously and used frequently.
But at least at 10 years, we would have to get that looked at by everybody and get their feedback on any
Yes.
changes we had made prior to
Yes,
the.
the
last
importance of that is that it then would remain a legally defensible plan.
Thank you.
Just adding to Charlie's comment, it occurs to me that that the planning committee can recommend to the county board subsidiary planning activities within the context of the standing comprehensive plan without altering the comprehensive plan. In other words, there's nothing to prevent a planning committee from planning other things that are fit within the context of the overall plan. So if there's a specific action that someone wants to bring forward 3 years down the line and it fits within the context of the plan, then it can be brought forward to the county board without revising the plan per se.
I think we can change it actually, right? There's just the changes would have to be viewed by the public.
Yes.
Every 10 years.
Yep.
So.
Or however frequent or often changes should be made or would like to be made.
Okay, just so I'm clear.
Yes.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. So just so I'm clear, we go through all this and then we get it approved and DATCAP signs off on it. And then 2 years from now, and we make significant changes to a different chapter, we put them in ourselves and we live by them. That's okay, but we got to present that. We could at any time present that for officialdom, but we have to do it at least in 10 years.
Yes,
But
that's correct.
we can modify it any way we like within that time frame and live by it,
Correct.
and it's still official.
And then DATCAP has the responsibility for the farmland preservation plan part of the comprehensive plan. And then the comprehensive plan itself, the Wisconsin Department of Administration only requires that every time that the plan is updated, that the ordinance and the adoption date be provided to Wisconsin Department of Administration. So they're aware of it.
Okay,
And they keep a database of all of the adopted plans in the whole state.
that's amazing.
Mhm.
I guess we need to further discussion a little bit. It's my understanding of the statute that counties are required to act consistent with their comprehensive plan, with possibility for some exceptions that can be justified. So if there were some kind of update that was inconsistent with the plan, then that would be out of bounds unless it was a special situation. And therefore, you would have to go through a public hearing process to update your plan. But you could have planning actions subsidiary to the plan, to the comprehensive plan, just everyday planning action that is, as long as it's consistent with the overall comprehensive plan, then it's fine. You don't have to change anything in your comprehensive plan. But it could be a detail, an action item, a goal that is consistent with your comprehensive plan that you hadn't thought of earlier. And you can go ahead and move on that without changing your comprehensive plan. But if you want to change a major principle of the comprehensive plan, then you would have to go through a public hearing process.
Any other questions? And then taking a look at the content of the comprehensive plan, the comprehensive planning law, that's chapter 66-1001, requires that every comprehensive plan covers at least 9 topics, which the statutes refers to as elements. And it also specifies what needs to be included in each of those elements. So the first element, typically in a comprehensive plan, I think that Ashland County's is a little different and put this at the end of the document currently, is the issues and opportunities, which serves as the introduction to the plan. It's meant to be the community demographics, talking about key trends along with projections for things like population, household, and land use. And the second element is housing. It looks at existing and projected housing needs and trends in the county. The third element being transportation, looking at anything transportation related, any of the different modes of transportation, as well as other sort of planning documents related to transportation that exist in the state. And then utilities and community facilities, that describes the infrastructure and the services that support the residents of the county. Things like sewer and water, stormwater, schools, parks, emergency services. The fifth element, agricultural, natural, and cultural resources. That focuses on the county's physical and environmental assets, as well as the cultural heritage. And in a lot of cases, these can overlap. So resource might be both natural and cultural in the county. And that probably occurs a lot in Ashland County. The sixth element is economic development that looks at existing conditions and strategies to support businesses, the labor force, jobs, a healthy economy. And then the seventh element, intergovernmental cooperation, that highlights the importance of coordinating with other jurisdictions, neighboring counties, tribal governments, school districts, and state and federal agencies. And then we have the land use element that describes current land use patterns so that there's an existing land use map of what's currently happening today, and then a guide where and how the future growth and development of the county should occur. And that includes a future land use map, looking 20 years into the future, what sort of land use do you want in Ashland County? And then implementation. It identifies the programs and actions needed to carry out the plan, along with any of those measurable steps to track the progress of the plan within its 10-year lifespan. So together, these 9 elements create a comprehensive plan framework to guide the county decision-making over that 20-year period. So it's a plan written with a 20-year outlook with a requirement of being updated at least once every 10 years. And then, as George was talking about, the consistency requirement. So the comprehensive plan is an advisory document, but it still carries legal significance. And the statute states that beginning January 1 of 2010, any new or amended zoning, land division, or official mapping ordinances have to be consistent with an adopted comprehensive plan. And the statutes defined consistent with to mean the ordinance furthers or at least does not contradict the plan's goals and policies. So the comprehensive plan, by clearly documenting community priorities, it helps to strengthen the legal defensibility of the land use ordinances that are within Ashland County, and it ensures that future development in the county aligns with the county's vision. And again, the comprehensive plan is adopted by ordinance, but it's in itself, it's not a regulation. Instead, it serves as a guiding document that provides a rational basis for legally defensible land use decisions. And an example would be that if a property owner requests to rezone farmland for a housing development, the comprehensive plan for Ashland County helps the county determine whether that change would align with community goals and ensures that that decision is made in a consistent and defensible way. Yep.
I'm going to ask a question, and I really want to just leave it as a question and not go off into a long discussion on this topic as Charlie and I and some others would. I'm on the zoning committee for the county also, and Charlie and I are on the farmland preservation committee. We had a meeting yesterday, as Autumn knows, and we talked about the spreading of human septic and the lack of information that we know. We think we can be informed of a dot on a map of every square mile or section. I think both terms were used. A section is, a mile by a mile. And so as I think about housing, and I think about in Bayfield County land I own, just a bit over a quarter mile east is one of the bigger sites where this stuff is spread. Thankfully, the wind is usually blowing from my place to there, so I don't have to deal with it, except occasionally. But if we think about zoning and housing and PFAS in that septic, and I understand why the government doesn't want to tell you exactly who's spreading what where because of the complaints, because we went through that 20 years ago when that started in our neck of the woods. So I understand the government not wanting to tell that. But I also think about as we do zoning and people wanting to drill wells, raise a garden, vegetables, so we know the PFAS comes up into, plants. It can bioaccumulate, including in the hay. So my question is, and this is just to take back and for a later date, is how do we make an informed decision about the risks of the land that we might designate for housing or housing developments so that as a county, we're doing the best we can to help people understand the property on which they might be living or building, and so that someone doesn't later say, well, I wish I would have known, and who do I blame and who do I sue? And so that's the question I have. Jason, yesterday with our meeting in Autumn, you can talk to Autumn on the way back if you rode together. I think it's becoming a more important question, and I don't know from a zoning perspective how we wrestle with that.
I think good to think about both as a full committee, but also good for Northwest Regional Planning to think about as someone on the outside facilitating the process.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there something then in mapping, like an overlay that would map out where land was that was spread? Is that something that you would put in your land mapping and land use chapter?
Well, I'll say it so she doesn't have to. There's dots on the map, but they are not specific enough so that we know which property it's on. We don't have history. We don't have if it's actively used or not. And so like, I'll say Bayfield County, I'll take it out of Ashland County, my property, a dot on the map there would not delineate between where it's being spread a bit over a quarter mile east of me, nor my property. And so if I were looking for property to build on, and trust me, I get people that ask me if I'm ready to sell, I think people want to know the history of what's there. But if I did want to sell at some point and this map shows that there's something being spread potentially there, I also want to be able to tell people, no, there's not. That map is not precise enough. So they just won't give us that history because it's a permitted use. And for whatever reason, I think they just don't want pushback from the public. It's not information that they share with the public, which surprises me because I would really like to know the history of what land has been permitted, and they track the records and the usage there, just so people, when they buy and sell land and think about putting in a house, raising a garden, I would not want to raise a garden in soil where there's a history of spreading that, especially in the era of pharmaceuticals, stuff that's not breaking down. I wouldn't want to raise a garden there. And yet people are putting in gardens in places and they don't know that history. And it might be a Wisconsin legislature issue that somebody has to bring forward to them. But locally, no, we can't get that information, is our understanding at this point.
Charlie?
I'm pretty sure it would have to be released with a Freedom of Information Act request. But just on the face of it, for the reasons Pat stated, and now that we can see the other issues, not just farmers, but we need to know that stuff. We need a profile of all the pollution, potential pollution, and we need to know how far it's spread off. Just because it's in one spot, we need to know that exact spot, and then we need to be able to test to see where, if it is polluted, it's stopped. What are the boundaries? And right now, there's no push to, when we ask, we get no, not now, and then the rather large X they give us for a spot, and there's 100+ of them just in this county. So I might do an FOIA, just FYI.
Yeah. So this raises a question, right? So this is for future consideration. And I think we've got the question. Maybe we could carry on.
That sounds good. I just have one quick question. This is where county comp plans always sort of confuse me. So the last slide is the comp plan does not have the same rule of law, so to speak, as an ordinance. But Bayfield County just went through the siting of a cell tower, which in their comp plan said we don't want such things because of aesthetics and ag aesthetics and that kind of thing. But the tower went in. So it's how are decisions made that might go against a comp plan? They just like an overrule of on a
Yeah, so
specific vote?
sounds like it was not consistent with the comprehensive plan for that decision. But if there were no one came forward with any legal issues related to that, it moved forward.
Point of information. I hope I'm not remembering this incorrectly, but I believe the last comprehensive plan was adopted as an ordinance, which is kind of interesting point of view, isn't it?
But a comprehensive plan is adopted by ordinance by the governing body, so that would be the county board.
That would make the county plan, comprehensive plan, the law under the ordinance.
Sorry, I thought that last slide said comprehensive plan does not equal an ordinance on your
It's
last.
Not in and of itself, but it is adopted by ordinance.
Adopted by an.
Yes. In itself, it's an advisory document. And then the legal standing comes from this consistency requirement for anything land use related.
So that's the key word, the consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then there's also that same consistency with the farmland preservation plan and the comprehensive plan.
On the cell tower, it's similar to, say, a gravel pit or spreading septic. It's a permitted process that's legal. And if you go through the process, you get your permit. So whether people want the cell tower or not, the state has a process where you can get a permit for that. So you can't be more restrictive than state or federal law. So for example, if a township says, nope, we don't want human septic spread in our township, well, if you meet the requirements for the DNR through the permitting process, you can spread. And same with gravel pits and other things like that. And so as we go through this comp plan, it's really helpful to the extent that we can be aware of what our limits are on what we can restrict. Because it might be, oh, we don't want this, that, or the other, but guess what? If it's allowed and there's a permitting process, the best we can do is say, like with the CAFO, is say, okay, townships can still have weight limits, so you can't haul loads that are too heavy in the spring and wreck your road. So townships can do that because that is allowed to have weight limits. But there's other things that you just can't control. So,
Important to remember.
yeah, and cell towers fell into what happened there. There were people that were concerned, but
Yeah, I've seen that a lot in smaller towns with the recent expansion of Dollar Generals around. Towns don't necessarily want to have that kind of development, but they follow the process to do so. And then back to the presentation, the public participation plan. This is something that is a formal document that's required by the comprehensive planning law. And to meet that requirement, the county board approves a formal public participation plan, which lays out how the community members will have opportunities to be involved or be asked to participate in the plan update process. And this committee, I know, played an important role in shaping that formal document, the public participation plan. And I understand that that public participation plan was formally adopted by the county board this July. And this is also a sort of living document that can be amended as we go through the planning process. And then the planning committee. So as the planning committee, you all play an important role in the process. You serve as a sounding board for any feedback on the plan update. You're the entity that helps to encourage community involvement in the plan update process. And then you're also the reviewers of the draft plan materials, and you share your comments and your local perspective and your local expertise. And then at the end of this process, you'll also be the entity that recommends the draft plan to the county board for approval. And then Northwest Regional Planning's role in this is to facilitate the process, provide any sort of technical expertise that we can, and then help to prepare all of the plan materials and make sure all of the statutory requirements are met for the update. And then a community survey. As part of the scope of this plan update, it includes the opportunity for deploying an online public survey or community survey to help inform the comprehensive plan update. So within this capacity, Northwest Regional Planning would assist with survey question development, set up that survey using a platform called ArcGIS Survey 123. And then at the end of that, prepare a summary report to analyze those survey results so that we could use those throughout the plan update review. And then the county's role would be to help provide input on those survey questions, distribute and promote the survey through any of the channels available, website, newspaper, radio, and then again, using those survey results to help guide the update. I want to make sure that's something we want to do for this update, first of all. Moving forward with a community survey, because that's something we'll want to do right away. One of the first things we'll need to do is the survey questions.
If I'm recalling, I think we agreed at our last meeting that we would want to do the survey.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember whether I volunteered to help with the questions, but I don't think we have the questions together yet. Pat?
I do know that we can talk about it more in depth at I think later on. There's an agenda item for the survey, but I do have some example survey questions. And then I know that there was a 2006 survey that I have not seen. So I don't know if any of those questions we could also use for this update.
Anybody else? Comments? Okay.
are you going to use the same questions through each of the formats that this would go out in?
So this would be only enough capacity for an online community survey.
So my comment on this is going to be, and I know you guys know this, Ashland County at the moment doesn't have the greatest of internet access throughout the whole county, but hopefully that's changing because we've got some grant money coming in. And so if you do online only, you're going to get a heavy bias towards those with internet access, means the city of Ashland voice will be louder than the southern part of Ashland.
Mhm.
It could bring a bias into the results because of the rather large difference in internet access. So we'd want to try to make sure we get a representative
Think about that.
sample, or at least the data that you collect, if you can tell somehow where it comes from, let's say Butternut and Glidden, if there's a question that identifies, hopefully there is, where they live,
Yeah.
then you might wait, because you're going to get fewer responses from some of those areas because of less internet access, but then you weight those to balance out, I would
Sure.
assume, a higher response rate from within the city.
And then in some of those areas, are there public spaces that do have internet access, like town halls or community centers or libraries that you could direct people to?
Not in the southern part, but what we could do is make sure when the survey goes out, we send it to the town.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Then at their town meeting, they could bring it up and say, hey, is everybody aware that there's a survey out there?
Mhm.
Because smaller towns, that's kind of the hub of information. But if we had and we have all their addresses, all the town chairmen and that, we could send it to them.
And I would offer that extension could help with a hard copy version. I've already been doing some preliminary work with seniors through different groups I'm working with that might not ever, even if they have broadband, might not access an online platform. But if we gave them a print copy, we could help with the data input. Because I know how those
Yeah.
surveys online, they just start calculating responses. But if you got paper copies, we could help with inputting it into the system somehow.
Sounds like it could be a good progress toward a solution.
Reaching out to the edges of the county, because 8,000 people are smashed up here.
Can you use this microphone, please?
I'm sorry. I was suggesting that we look at spending the most trying to reach the outer edges of the county, because the city of Ashland is all co-located and easier to reach through, other means than the edges. Like notices in the paper and things like that. So an online survey Pat was mentioning would tend to skew the results towards Ashland City because we've all got internet. So take that money for the online you would do here and find other better means to reach the edges, because it's very unlikely we won't get enough input from the city of Ashland regardless of what we use. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
So that's Liz online?
Yes, I'm on the phone.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody knows that you're here. That's Liz Franek online. Okay. Give it back to you, Emily.
Right. All good thoughts on the survey. We'll talk about it more too. And then the actual plan structure, the physical document, is made up of three main parts. The first is the background report, which examines the current and historical data, looks at the trends and develops forecasts for the future. And that's your volume 1 of your comprehensive plan. And then there's the mapping, also found in the volume 1, which are all of the maps that visually show resources and conditions found in the background report, as well as a map representing the county's vision for future land use. So that's the future land use map. And then the third component that's found in your volume 2 of your comprehensive plan is the vision and the implementation, which sets our goals and our objectives, the desired future conditions for Ashland County, and outlines actions for achieving the comprehensive plan's vision. Yes.
Okay, so I have a question on this structure. It's puzzling to me to start out a document of this nature with background information. it makes sense from a developmental point of view, from developing the plan. But if I'm a user, I'm someone who's thinking to come to Ashland County from Minneapolis for business, and I want to look into this plan, I really expect to see the vision and the opportunities and risk and opportunities up front and the background in support of that. So is there a reason that we've put background as the first element? I don't understand that.
As far the volume 1 and volume 2 that currently
Yes,
exist?
yeah. Why is the background information volume 1 instead of the vision being volume 1?
Is anyone who was a part of the previous?
Go ahead. Well, part of it was all of that background data is supposed to be the information that drives your goals and objectives and actions. And so the main reason is here's what your county looks like, here's what your issues are, here's what your challenges are. And from that, you develop your goals and objectives and strategies. And correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, you're looking at it, but in the very beginning of part 1, I thought it had the like issues and trends. Yeah, in the first part. But you know, I helped the town of Morris write an emergency operations plan, and we had that same question. So we just moved all of the actions to the very front. And there's an emergency, you grab that plan, everything you need to do is right there. I think you could get away with changing the order, but really because they're physically separated, it seems like it's easy enough to find your goals and actions. And hopefully there's money somewhere to make a user-friendly version of just the actions, vision, and objectives.
Chuck?
Sorry. When you were talking, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Why didn't we think about it? But we were thinking just like Lissa described. So I think from a user's point of view, yours, it's like getting the executive summary last. Now we have it, and the executive summary should be first. So if we want it to look at this more as a public-facing document, we should reorder it. For ease of construction, the way it was is the way it was.
Erica?
So I think we might be thinking a little too strictly about what the comprehensive plan is. So this is the formal document that meets all of the requirements and has all of the info. The way that we present that to the public could be completely different. As Lissa said, could consolidate, could forward, could minimize, right? So I'm not sure what the problem is in, version 1 versus version 2, because nobody is going to read 300 pages when they want a brief overview of Ashland County, right? And what our goals are. They're going to go right to what we point them to ultimately.
So Emily, is there a reason to be one way or the other?
I would say similar to what Lissa mentioned is that the background information is there because it is meant to say where you are now. And then you have the forward thinking where you want to go and how will you get there is that second visioning and implementation part.
Is there any legal constraint on how it's presented?
As far as
Which comes first?
In general, the issues and opportunities comes first. In most situations, there aren't 2 volumes of a plan. Usually it's one plan as it is.
Okay, so let me add on to why I'm thinking about this. And so this is a real question for you, Emily and Autumn. As I've looked at the plan as we have it currently constructed, the 2016 plan, the division of responsibilities here, as I'm thinking about, is that the background data is something that we're looking to Northwest Regional Planning to do the update. So I'm not looking to members of these committees to be doing the update for the background.
Northwest Regional Planning will update all of the current, update the census data, the actual factual information with all the public sources that we have, and then we would provide that updated draft probably to usually it's the subcommittee, since you have established subcommittees for plan elements, to review that and provide any of the local expertise, any updated studies that we might not know about, any inner knowledge that you might have, to then update and make sure that fully represents where you want to go for this update.
Okay, so that makes complete sense to me. We're basically looking to Northwest Regional Planning for the first draft of the
Yes.
update, then to get reviewed by committees. So then let me say that what I've been thinking as the chair of the committee is that the primary responsibility of the elemental subcommittees, as well as reviewing that data when it comes forward, is to review the vision and the goals and objectives part of, in other words,
Yeah, that's
the goals and
typically,
objectives part, the forward-looking part of the plan is the responsibility of the subcommittees. And I just want to make sure that we're kind of on the same page there. Any comments? Pat?
I don't really care the order of it, but this reminds me of, I bought a new tractor a couple of years ago and I ordered the manual. And last winter I thought, I'm going to actually read this thing cover to cover. And I got partway through doing that and I had to stop. I did read the City of Ashland comp plan cover to cover twice back in 2010 when I ran for council. That was really onerous. And I'll never read a comp plan cover to cover again. What I want in a good comp plan or manual is I want a really well organized table of contents. So if I want to know how many quarts of oil, what the air pressure in the tires is, things like that, it's easy to find. And then I want a good index in the back. So when I look up some of this stuff, I can find what I want quickly and easily. So it's extremely user friendly, because as I look at the comp plan for Ashland County, I'm not going to read it cover to cover, but I do want to be able to find what I'm interested in fairly quickly and easily. And if any of you have ever looked at tractor manuals and some farm equipment manuals, they could not make it harder to find the simplest of things. Like if you want to change the oil, what oil and filter, even the tire pressure and stuff, it's crazy how hard that is. It just is. I want it to be really user friendly regardless of the order of the chapters in there. And then that's table of contents and that's index. And after that, it really doesn't matter because you're looking stuff up anyway and flipping to the page they give you.
and maybe this is a good decision to make once we see everything all updated. We have more of the pieces to take a look at as a whole.
So are you up to now timeline and responsibilities? Is that where?
I am not yet. So then we have the actual process. So the first would be for Northwest Regional Planning, which we've already started, is to revise the background report using all of the sources and resources that we have to update the statistical data, any of the tables, charts, graphs. And then we're developing those new forecasts based on the current information for housing, population, land use, and then updating the narrative to match that updated statistical data. And then the second would be the review of the issues and opportunities from the previous plan and update those to reflect any new or emerging challenges. So issues, those are challenges that could affect the county's goals or require attention, while the opportunities are areas for improvement or positive change that the county could act on. I know that earlier Extension had worked with National Park Service about some extreme weather event, climate resilience meetings with stakeholders and experts on certain subjects. And I think there are reports that we could take a look at when we update the issues and opportunities for the comprehensive plan. And then I know there are also departmental surveys that went out this spring that we should also take a look at when we're updating the issues and opportunities list for the plan. And then after, yes.
As we all know, Northland College changed. When you get around to looking at population, the state has projections for Ashland County going out, I think it's to 2050 now, about the total population, different age groups and stuff. And I looked at the methodology a couple of months ago on how they come up with those projections, and they use census data basically. So the Northland students should be included in the census data when it's taken. Whether they all were or not, I don't know, but they should have been included in that. And so in that data, one of the things that they look at is women of childbearing age. And so with the college closing, we had a change in our demographics here, and I don't know how accurately the state's projections are going to be given that change. And so when you look at the population demographics and projections, I don't think we can rely entirely on what the state has because of, they're using census data, and that currently doesn't reflect Northland closing. So I think we'd have to dig a little deeper to come up with whatever we come up with.
We'll take a look at that when we update those sections. So I think it's as of April 1st where you are for where you're counted in the census. April 1st of the time that you're taking the census.
But in 2020, the students
Yes.
would have been here, and the
Yeah.
number of students was
Then-
higher then than it was when they closed.
I think the 2020 census also has the added complication with numbers because of the pandemic. Good thinking.
And Emily, I don't know if you'll need this, but before Northland College took their webpage down, our office downloaded lots of their Center for Rural
That would
Development.
be nice.
I can
Yeah.
forward those to you.
Because there's lots of plans and studies that they had.
Okay. So
I would. Yes, please. And then a review of the vision framework. So that's the goals and objectives and the vision statement. And then I know similar to the issues and opportunities, we have the information that we can also take a look at from those Extension National Park Service meetings about extreme weather to consider, and then those departmental surveys to take into consideration when we review the vision framework. And then we have the strategy review. So that's a review of the action steps in the action plan. Updating those as needed to reflect current priorities. So the action plan outlines each step, including who's responsible, when that action will be completed, the resources needed to complete that action, and then a column for evaluation. So what additional resources might be available? And then step 5, identify any new action steps. In doing so, thinking about, do any of the current or forecasted issues and opportunities that we took a look at require any new action steps? If there are any new goals or objectives identified to have supporting actions, is the county better today to accomplish certain strategic actions than maybe it was in 2016? And are there any additional resources that we can use now? And then considering any new studies or plans that have been developed. I know that Ashland County recently updated their hazard mitigation plan. And then the mapping, also a step that Northwest Regional Planning will be a major part in. The resource mapping will be primarily handled by our GIS specialist. It's Clem Larson. We'll update all of the maps using any new and updated GIS data. And while some of the underlining data, like the soils maps, for instance, won't change, we'll still take advantage of the latest GIS technology to produce refreshed layouts and imagery for all of those maps. And then the existing land use mapping, that's identifying the current land use in Ashland County. And I think as a part of the Farmland Preservation Plan update, well, we already have this information from Ashland County, so we'll review that map as a full committee. And then based on that existing land use map, take a look at what the county would like the land use pattern to look like in 20 years. Last time you did this at a county scale, which we can do again this time. And then Steps for plan adoption would be to compile and finalize all of the updated data and information into a draft plan. And then once we have all of that, it would be a preliminary draft plan that we could send out for public review and conclude that with a public open house. And typically that includes Northwest Regional Planning facilitating a sort of presentation on what we have updated and what we found as a part of the plan update process, and then open that up for public comment and questions. And then after that, this committee would approve a resolution recommending the updated draft plan be approved by the county board. At that time, the county board receives that resolution from this committee. A public hearing is scheduled. The designated body, which is typically the county board, and often the public hearing occurs prior to the county board adoption of the ordinance, listens to any of the public testimony related to the draft plan. And then the county board could send back feedback or send back the plan if there are any edits that are needed, and provide any feedback. And if there are no changes, the county board formally adopts the updated plan by ordinance. The plan is distributed to specific entities that are described in the statutes. So that's local libraries, neighboring jurisdictions, Northwest Regional Planning. And then we'll also provide all of the data that we have collected, the GIS data, any PDF and Word document copies of the plan, any print copies, if those are defined in our contract. And then that 10-year cycle for the comprehensive plan begins again. And then you have the implementation and putting that plan to work. Now we're on the timeline. Discussion of timeline and responsibilities. This is a broad look at the timeline. So we're looking at about a 12-month period for the actual plan update process with this committee, concluding hopefully having a preliminary draft plan by August of 2026, and then holding a public open house on that preliminary draft plan. In October, the resolution, the formal approval of the draft plan by this committee, which could then go to the 30-day public comment period as required in the statutes. And then no later than January 2027, the county board ordinance adopting the updated plan.
Emily?
Yeah.
So does January 27 meet the statutory requirement for filing, or does it have to be in 26?
Or are you talking specifically for the grant?
I mean, but you're going to file this with the state.
Yeah, that's fine, but I don't know if the planning grant has any specific. I think it was the spring of 2027 that this needed to be completed for grant reporting purposes, but no requirements for the actual approval of the plan specifically for the Wisconsin Department of Administration for the comprehensive plan update side.
Okay.
And then any questions on any pieces of the timeline?
Right. So as I'm thinking about it, each of our subcommittees will be needing the input of the updated data from
Yeah.
background element relative to their element. And it's going to be hard for subcommittees to have their own public access hearings until they get that data. So when do you think you might have the first draft
Yep.
data available for the subcommittees? Because I'm thinking we ought to be, getting something fleshed out by early of the year.
Stepping back a little, I just wanted to make sure that I understood how many committees existed and who are on those committees. And are you also including other stakeholders, subject matter experts within those committees? Thank you.
Okay, so I've handed you the list of the subcommittees and the subcommittee chairpersons who are all members of this committee. So most members of this committee are subcommittee chairpersons. They will be our task basically with pulling together input from members of the community, participants at a subcommittee level, from different sources of information, and reviewing the existing issues as risks and opportunities as are presented in the existing plan. But then they'll want your data update in order to help them evaluate whether changes are going to be needed for this updated plan. So, it's hard to have a subcommittee where I'm like, Paul's doing transportation, I'm doing utilities. I can review the existing utilities portion. I can look at the existing issues that were there in 2016, the issues and opportunities, the risks. But then I'm kind of stuck until I get the further update as whether there's more information that you have to give me from the new background data.
And then a question on the titles of the committees don't follow the current plan chapters.
Well, they're pretty close, but the subcommittees are designed for data collection. So community facilities and culture facilities are kind of one and the same thing. They don't really go with utilities. So if I'm looking at utilities, I'm looking at, Xcel Energy and Nervato and hardcore utilities. I'm not looking at cultural facilities like the senior center. So in terms of getting our work done and just gathering information, getting input from experts in the community, we've divided it up this way, but then we'll just resort it into the elements as presented in the statute.
Okay, so your current comprehensive plan in the update, we'll update the plan as the utilities and community facilities chapter. It'll be at the stage of your subcommittee that you look at that differently.
So we probably have that chapter with two sub-chapters. One is on community facilities and one is on.
I think the plan already separates them into two different sections within that chapter.
So anyway, the subcommittees are established as there for the collection of information. Yeah.
It'll probably be at our September, October meeting that we'll start to have those draft plan chapters available. The question would be, how do you want us to share those? In general, we'll put those on the Northwest Regional Planning webpage, create a webpage specifically for the Ashland County Comprehensive Plan, and then we can upload the current version of the updated plan chapters as they're revised. And then the Ashland County website could include a link to the Northwest Regional Planning website, and that seems to work best at this stage because then we can, as we need to update things, we can do so in real time.
So I don't, any observations? That makes sense to me, as long as each subcommittee will have access to.
Yeah, it'll be a public link.
Yeah, so a link on our planning committee webpage, on the Ashland County webpage, would take us, well, hold it, that's public access though, isn't it? How do we do this? Our planning committee webpage is a general public access webpage. And I don't think you want public access into this draft environment.
Be the other question, at what stage do you want the public to review the draft? Would it be after the subcommittee review?
Yes.
So then we should utilize, for the first preliminary draft review that goes to the subcommittees, the SharePoint folder of Ashland County. And then it'll be after.
Comment? Anybody?
This is Elizabeth Franek. Can I interject?
Go ahead, Liz.
I don't know if it's because, my lack of time because I'm sick on my only day off or what it is, but I just have a suggestion. We have all our subcommittees. What I'm doing with my subcommittees is I'm going to contact each head of that committee, or, you know, I'll use one as an example, the Ashland Resource Center, or whatever it is. Call or email them, tell them, you know, what you're all about, and you would really like them to add planning to their meetings. Okay, they do that. Now they have that open discussion at their meeting. Even if I can't attend, it's public knowledge. I can go back and see if anybody discussed anything. So then I can touch base with them, and I can ask all these different entities to just, how about, I don't know, I'm throwing this out here because a lot of people don't have a lot of time. I'm on other boards. I have another board meeting at 4:15 that I'll have to be on the phone because I can hardly talk. What I would like to see is us engage with the not the community, but all our different subcommittees with one big meeting, inviting them all for input instead of us reaching out to them all the time, because nobody has time. So in the future, when we really need their input, that we invite all these stakeholders to one big meeting. We can do a doodle poll. We can see when the majority of them can go, even if it's on a Saturday afternoon. I can schedule a time off of work. I have 2 jobs. So I don't know if that would work, but I think we're just in the age of technology. We have better resources now to get that information, and people don't always have to be boots on the ground and sit in 1,000 meetings. Just my input. Thank you.
Let me just add to what Liz had to say there. I think as we are currently loosely structured, it is really up to each subcommittee chairperson to decide how they want to go about conducting their, what we call a subcommittee effort, whether it be an individual reaching out or convening meetings or doing a Zoom meetings or surveying different departments. It really has to be, as I've seen it, in the hands of the individual subcommittee chairperson because of our individual personal constraints. I hope that answers your question, Liz. And I turn the floor
Okay,
back over to
thank you.
Emily. Charlie. Oh, Pat, sorry.
Can we go back to the previous screen?
Yes.
So something I brought up in other meetings is I'm looking at that first part, August 25 to August 2026. We have county board elections next April, and all things being equal, it'd sure be nice if we start and finished this plan all with the same county board. Last time, 1/3 of the board turned over when we had an election. And so somehow in that first part, it wouldn't be surprising if there's some changes on the board. And then, you know, you have the election, then you have a reorganization meeting, and then committee, and you elect a board chair and a few other committees, highway committee, whatever. But then the board chair and the administrator meet and they make appointments to other committees, which would include the plan committee at this point. That creates a really long gap if we have people leave where, you know, it's most of 2 months or so potentially, we'd have to, I don't know, have some sort of plan or just be ready to deal with a lag there to get new people and then to get them up to speed.
Have you encountered that kind of situation in the past, Emily?
That did occur in Burnett County. They were just getting to the plan adoption part of their comprehensive plan update process, and they had a almost completely new county board, but they kept moving as business as usual and had new people to inform about the plan update process.
Or pass an ordinance to prohibit any county board member from not running next year.
You'd be superseding state law. Can't do it, listen.
Okay, so where are we now in your agenda there, Emily?
So did we solve any other questions for subcommittee review of materials? So the subcommittee will review materials and then we'll hold a full committee based on the recommendations of the subcommittees would be the general process.
Right, I think when you get into after the subcommittees have formed their draft, the recommended draft documents, then I suspect that the full committee ought to, in session, review each one of those individually in a series of meetings. So maybe it'll take, half an hour to review one element as
Yeah, I would
recommended by the subcommittee.
say,
And that might take like 3 or 4 meetings, 2 or 3 meetings before we could get through all of the
a
elements.
full committee, we won't probably review the background report unless there's some kind of very new information that's incorporated. But for the visioning and the implementation, we'll all review those subcommittee recommendations as a full group.
Exactly.
And then we'll also, as we figure out where we are and as we have the updated draft plan elements, we'll probably create some deadlines for that subcommittee recommendations for incorporating into the plan update.
So you run your presentation.
And then I think that answers the question I had on how to share the draft plan elements as they're available. We'll put those in the SharePoint folder. And then share those on our website when they're in that after the subcommittee review version. And then what time do we have? Looks like we're at 2:11. And then the next part was about that public survey. Figuring out those sorts of logistics or starting to figure out those logistics. But I don't know if there was a confirmation on if we want to move forward with an online survey.
So I think we're at the question of how do we say what the questions ought to be in the online survey?
Yes.
And I suspect you maybe have a straw man starting point for that.
Yes. And I did
It was
somewhere I
to us.
printed.
Perhaps that could be shared by email to all the committee members. And then that feedback could come back to you from all of the committee members with suggestions, and you could consolidate a draft for us to be reviewed at our next meeting.
Do have a draft
Okay.
that I can share today. And then it would be helpful by our September meeting if we could finalize survey questions as if this is how we're moving forward. So the survey questions that you'll get today in this document, and we'll also share those virtually, email those out. This is fully based on the Burnett County Comprehensive Plan Update Survey that they did a couple of years ago.
So our comments back to you would be our suggestions for modifications
Yeah,
of that,
take a
of that straw man. Just a straw man, just a place to
Yes.
start, right?
And then thinking about by our next meeting, we'll want to have these questions finalized by the end of our September meeting.
So I think by emailing it to each of us,
Yeah.
that will trigger each of us to please respond to it and give you the feedback.
Because some of these might not be as specifically to Ashland County as a coastal county. Because if this is what we moved forward with, we would look at having a survey report of the survey responses to this committee for a presentation, hopefully by the end of this year. So then we can use those survey responses to help inform the plan as well. Yes. These were generated by the Burnett County Planning Committee for their comprehensive plan. And they were based off of their 2010 plan, and they modified some of the questions or some of the answers, I suppose, to talk about things like concentrated animal feeding operations and some of the technological advances that have happened, especially with broadband internet and things like that.
Some source for that these are the kind of questions you could ask if you want to get people to tell you what they want their county to look like. Is this like a kind of a standard? So these questions, are they generated by, I don't know, like university think
They-
tanks to generate the kind of answers that will give us the information?
Yeah, they were originally generated by the River Falls campus and then modified in 2022, 2023 for their plan update. And then I know 2006 survey questions for Ashland County exist somewhere that might be interesting, especially to compare results if those exist.
I say that because I'm not qualified to determine if these questions are what we should ask or not.
Mhm.
And I read through them, I like some of them, but I just want to make sure that they give us answers that let us, you know, understand what they want and that it applies to this plan in a way that gives
Yeah,
us
that's
meaningful.
valid.
Okay.
And my computer that I inherited from extension employee before me didn't go back to 2006, but there might be some hard copies around. I'll poke
Yeah.
around. I found some things on a disc. I just don't have a disc player, but I
Okay,
think that was mainly 2016 surveys,
okay.
but I'll look for you.
Because I found the farmland preservation plan from 2016. They redid that survey. So we have those questions, but not the comprehensive plan from 2006 questions.
Lissa, I think Tom Wojciechowski would probably be happy to tell you where you might find them, because he did all that at the time. He ran this whole update thing. 2016, yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay.
This is Elizabeth Franick.
Go
Can
ahead,
I
Liz.
go ahead? On the survey, I've had community members and tourists ask questions about future use of Northland College. I also had questions about the county's role assisting the tribe with wild rice preservation. Also with future job opportunities and how are we going to staff these jobs with a college population missing? Thank you.
Lisa, did you have more? Back to you, Emily.
And then hopefully everyone can take a look at these in between this meeting and our next meeting, and on the agenda for next meeting have finalization of the survey questions as well as sort of a timeline for the survey deployment as an agenda item.
Do we have time for me to ask just a few questions about
Sure.
this? So I have looked over this. I think we got it in an email from you
Yeah.
several weeks ago. One question I have is question 3. It says rate the quality of following services and facilities. When we're looking over this, should those services and facilities be within the wheelhouse of the county itself? So something like county parks, we actually don't have any county parks. So would we take that out, or are we asking sort of more about rural parks in general in the county that might be administered by something else like the state?
Mm-hmm. I would say whichever take you want to go with
Okay,
that.
Okay,
What's
I'm-
most important to have
Okay,
information about in general,
Right.
all opportunities for parks and open space in the county? Like that still has implications for
right,
community development planning and land use.
right. But it seems
Um,
like we kind of need to decide, like, do we take this survey as a tool for judgment of how the county
what
itself is
perspective?
operating? Or for what people want and need
Yes.
in the county,
It-
which
it-
might not be our purview.
The other one is, if I was looking at this, I'm not so sure I would answer it as a Ashland County property park. Because a county has multiple parks
Sure.
within towns and villages.
Yeah.
So I don't know if a person reading this would know,
Just parks.
if we said Ashland County Parks, we'd say, we don't have any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I might not answer, it, but maybe
If we
parks within
modified
the
that.
county or something,
Yeah.
because it's
That
not a
makes
county
sense.
park. Yeah.
So in the name of time, I think these are the feedback that we want to be sending to Emily after we get the email from her.
Yes.
I don't know that it's, it's 2:20 now. We won't be able to complete this agenda today if we're going to be in a 2-hour meeting.
No,
So I'm just saying, I think what we're asking is for all of us to give this kind of feedback to Emily, for her to come up with a draft for our September meeting. Erica?
I absolutely agree. What I would underline though is that this is going to take a long time for us to talk through, even when she compiles everything, I feel like. So I think that we probably need to make this like basically our only thing on the agenda in September.
Yes.
I'm more because we are going to want to talk through all of these questions, I think. I could be wrong. I mean, I just, but like, I think
think
this is
that-
probably going to be a process.
You're correct in that thinking.
Other comments? Pat?
Without having gone through this, I would also be interested in terms of the 9 elements we're supposed to have in a comp plan. What is the balance of addressing each of those 9 elements? And offhand, I don't know if we're hitting all 9, or hitting some heavy and others not much.
Other comments? I'd say that Lisa and Eric have done some preliminary survey work, and there may be questions from that earlier survey work that we want to incorporate. I mean, I don't, just because Burnett County did it this way, doesn't mean at all to me that we need, I could throw this out.
These are all
I
examples.
could throw this out and come up with a whole different list of questions that interest us. So that's the kind of input we need to give to Emily, I think. Moving on. Oh, Pat, sorry.
This is just a thought, and I'm going to regret saying it, but maybe for each of us that are chairing a different area, like I've got ag and forestry, maybe each of us come up with some questions related to the area that we're chairing. And that way, as we think ahead towards public participation, if we were to say to people, for me, for example, what's important related to agriculture to you, it would force me to think a little harder, a little sooner. And that's why I'm going to regret having said that.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Other comment? Moving on then, Emily.
Yeah, and so then the discussion of countywide planning issues on opportunities, we'll postpone that to a future meeting.
Okay, although that's coming up next on this agenda with regard to the current plan. So if this is the end of your things that you will need to talk about, let me ask if anybody have further questions for Emily or Autumn on what we've discussed so far. Listen,
One quick thing on the survey. I'm never quite confident about how we interact with the tribe on this.
Sure.
I assume tribal members, of course, are going to be invited, but then in your experience with other counties, are there questions related to tribal issues or special needs of the tribe that we should make sure we address?
I have not seen that. And honestly, Burnett County is the only county that's recently done a comprehensive plan survey, and they have the St. Croix Chippewa Indians of Wisconsin within their county, and they did not include any specific questions in their survey, but they did invite members of the tribe to every planning committee meeting.
Okay, I think we're moving on then to item 5C in our agenda, which was to discuss the 2016 comp plan listed issues and opportunities. I just wanted to go over these. Can we bring those up on screen? Is that available? We have a backup document for that. All right. So do I have that here? Yeah. So the point of bringing this up on the agenda is to focus our attention with regard to our individual elements that we're working on. So I want to make sure that everybody has paid attention to the existing listed issues, opportunities under these different sections. So the first section, if you'll scroll there a little bit, Carisha, you come to governance and citizen involvement. And then we're going to go to the tax base, which goes with land and demographics. And then you keep scrolling. And you're to housing. Keep scrolling. Then you're to community character, and then transportation, utilities and community facilities, agriculture, natural resources, economic development, intergovernmental cooperation, and land use. So there's a lot here already. And in essence, my thinking is that it's our assignments as individual subcommittee leaders to review these existing issues and opportunities as they were presented in the earlier plan, and to think about how we might want to change or update those. So it's like we're not working from scratch. Each of us has a baseline here that's already on the books, already in effect as of right now, because these are the listed issues and opportunities up until we actually issue a new plan. These are in effect. And that, to me, simplifies our role. Now, there's so much here, I don't think we have the capacity to actually talk through all of these today. But I would ask that each subcommittee address these existing issues and opportunities as currently in the plan. And then the item 5D on our agenda is to look at the vision statement. Now, that's something I think we probably could talk a little bit about today, because this is, if you can scroll to that, and I'll scroll down to where it says vision and put that on the screen. Yeah, this is just, this is just half a page to look at. And I just want to read it if you don't mind. It says, we envision a county that recognizes the diversity of rural, forested, community, and village life. By joining together, we become stronger and more efficient in meeting our citizens' needs. We are challenged to maintain and improve land, air, and water quality in an increasingly complex world. Then to meet these challenges. So, as Emily has pointed out to me, you don't really come up with your final vision after you've collected all your data, gotten your input from your community, and think, what is the vision that the citizens actually want us to represent? But it strikes me that also we need to be thinking about whether what we as a committee think about this vision statement. And I'm wondering if anybody can bring forth an opinion upon whether this is what we would want to represent going forward, or whether there should be some modification, adjustment, amplification. Are there any thoughts on this question of the vision statement? Because it becomes a guidance for the entire document. Charlie.
I liked when we talked, I don't know, three or 4 weeks ago, you mentioned putting something in there, an overarching statement to some effect of to improve everyone's quality of life. As after talking to you, I agree, this is 100% to make everyone's quality of life better. And to memorialize that somewhere in it, I think is a good idea. But that's my opinion. Thank you.
Other thoughts? Listen,
I totally think that should be near the top because that's the purpose of a plan. And if we include that phrase in there, that helps people understand better, like what's the purpose of the thing? It's 300 pages, you know? The purpose is we're trying to make sure that we at least maintain but improve the quality of life for all. So I would like that in there. And I'd also like obviously some sort of overarching reference to the fact that we are experiencing and will continue to experience the impacts from extreme weather events. That's not really addressed.
let me look then down below where it says, we are challenged. So it says to meet these challenges, we will. And I could easily see placing in there a statement of dealing with changes in extreme weather as one of these statements.
Yeah.
So these statements have robust economic growth, have a thriving local economy, and it mentions quality of life. And it says, well-qualified workforce with high quality of life is actually mentioned in here. Maintain high-quality natural resources, continue its position in stewardship of the county, state, federal lands. So I think these subsidiary statements support then the real simple vision that our goal is for the quality of life of the citizens of the county to be ever improved if we could. Other comments?
Well, at the very end, that four-year higher educational institutions seems like it needs an edit at this point. But it also strikes me, having taught at the tech school up here, and like half my load was online and ITV courses, is there's not a component in there related to making use of the internet. So we're getting grant money, so Novato is going to expand. That's going to be really huge in a lot of ways, partly because socially younger people want to be able to get on to social media and stuff, and connect with people, but also if they're going to start a business without internet access, it's really hard. So that part's going to help. But it also then expands educational opportunities beyond our traditional models of 2-year schools, 4-year schools and stuff for a lot of other learning that people can do remotely. For whatever reason they want to learn things, starting a business or particular skills that they want to learn, they can access those things. So more and more of post-high school education, people are getting, things they call certificates and badges where they acquire a certain set of courses or skills from a variety of online places. So they can pick the courses they want from the places they want. And some of these places, and they've been doing this for a good decade or more, they give what they call badges and certificates. And it's just an acknowledgement that somebody's acquired some background. And so we see far more of that than we used to. And the very last bullet doesn't reflect that. But it is what people are doing, especially if they don't want to be, in part because of childcare and stuff, they don't want to go somewhere else to go to school like they used to, but they still want to acquire learning to better their life here.
Yeah, I think we can build on that comment. It's really significant because this world of more advanced computing, which we're calling artificial intelligence, but basically it's really high speed, deep research, is democratizing education for people almost anywhere on the face of the planet, so that someone through remote learning, whether formalized or unformalized, has access to answering almost any question that you can have. You could get an answer in about 2 minutes by going online, and then you might have to go deeper to find out the truth. But I think you've opened the door on a subject matter that really does impact our future as a county. Alyssa, did you have something?
Yeah, so would you see something like keep that last sentence and then at the end it says educational institutions and say, or certification programs through in-person or online learning opportunities? Just add that, would that like expand that last bullet with your comments to modernize it?
Something along that line, but I've also know people who have learned an awful lot, and it's like, and let's say they want to start their own business. They can learn a lot online, either through courses that are offered by an accredited institution, but other sources that they can, go to. But that internet is a huge component of that because they've got to have the access to get there. And then they find the things that are of interest to them. Some of the stuff, with the stuff at the farm and equipment and repair, it's amazing how many, I mean, I'm doing it now too, YouTube videos. I'm amazed at the people I talked to. And there was a guy just a couple of days ago, I sold him something and he was out at the farm and he was showing me what he was doing. I mean, he's doing it all online. It's all taking courses and programs and getting things certified, including something he's building, where you need to get a permit, to make sure it was done right. It's astounding what some of these people are doing, but it's not the formal education we think of. So something broad enough that captures, I don't care if I have a certificate or badge also, because you can do that now.
I wrote down here, I might express that as expanding remote learning opportunities. It's a really big,
Both
Grab
formal and informal. So I don't want somebody to think I have to go to a school, or
Yeah.
I have to sign up for a class, because so much of this is informal now. And it meets their needs, but they don't want the bureaucracy of school or even the tuition in many cases of it.
Lisa?
I'm just curious if you want us to go through like these one at a time, or are we in a process where we're sending our comments to Emily like we are about the issues and
I think this is a good preliminary discussion, but when we get into the actual visioning review after the subcommittees have met, we'll take a look at this as a full committee before we get into the goals and objectives as a full committee.
okay.
Yes, there's a point of putting this on the agenda is to get us thinking about this now,
Yeah.
about what has been said in the past. And so that we are, so that we're working
Keep it at
with
the forefront.
ideas, but this is all kind of straw, coming up with preliminary ideas at this point. So
I'm just trying to find a logical place to throw this in. I would like this body's approval for two elements. I have a professor from Northland who's willing to create a sustainability element, and I'm halfway done writing a community health element. And I just want to get this greenlit here before I invest any more time in it. And you asked me to bring this up here, and so is that how you wanted me to do it? I hope.
So what Charlie's proposing, as I understand your proposal, adding to what you would call another element of the comprehensive plan. So the question is whether that you fit that in within one of the existing subcommittee structures, or whether it's appropriate in what we file with the state to add these additional pieces. So you have any thoughts on that, Emily? Maybe, Charlie, maybe you could explain a little bit more for Emily what you're thinking?
Sure. I was going through it, and having done the last one, I was reading it and I realized, we have a health and human services, but we don't have a section in there, and community health is very important, but we don't mention it. And for quality of life, it should have its own bullet up there. And sustainability is very important. And we have committees. The city has the last sustainability committee that I'm aware of, but we don't have an element in the comprehensive plan. So I thought, to me, I think they should absolutely have their own spot, but I'm just one guy and maybe I'm off the deck. But I'm willing to do the work to get a draft to this body to look at if the body is interested in doing it. And if you feel you can put it somewhere in the plan, I don't care where it goes. It doesn't have to have new elements. Just, it seems like that would be the appropriate spot, but I don't care. As long as I can do an element and put goals and action items at the bottom and let us know what the challenges are, what the threats are. Community health has Health and Human Services has a community health assessment and a community health improvement plan. But the plan is lacking in action steps right now. I thought I would take that and give it some teeth and then, some things we can do to get where we need to be in that regard. So it's just throwing that out there. If you want me to continue the march, I will, and I'll have something for you well in time with your deadlines. But it is additional work. So it's your guys'
Emily?
decision to make.
I think those sound like good things to incorporate into something like a comprehensive planning document, and whether or not those are specific standalone plan elements or you want to integrate that throughout the comprehensive plan, we could do either direction.
And I think Bayfield
Melissa?
County is rich with the sustainability. They've infused it in the
Yes.
whole plan.
And then they also added an introduction to their plan specifically about systems thinking and sustainability.
Yeah. So I know with the extreme weather, we knew that there might be some resistance in the county. Not everyone believes that changing climate conditions are happening. So what we were trying to do was say, okay, let's not even deal with that, but we know we are having increased extreme weather. And then how can we infuse each of the 9 elements with some acknowledgement and action on how to deal with how that affects housing or transportation or natural resources? So to me, that seemed like the more integrated approach, like take sustainability actions and principles and embed them into each of the 9 chapters where you can. But Bayfield County's is a great model for how they did that.
Let me edit.
Can I interject again? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Liz. You're online.
Charlie, I think the community health is very important, and I'd like to see you put into that the epidemic of the drugs and the homeless, and because of them out there, it is a big effect on their health, their family's health. They can't be taken in by family. Most of them, not all of them, are actively using. And how will that affect our future here? What do we need to accommodate so there won't be more homeless individuals? Just recently on the scanner, there was an OD. So I don't know the effects or the outcome yet. I'm hoping that they got to them in time. It's also a lot of people that use have committed felonies, and as a result of that cannot find jobs or housing. So we have to see as a going forward as a plan, what can we do to help the future of these people, because they're community members, long as they're even actively using, they're still our community members. Thank you.
Let me throw in a point of information here. So it looks to me, Charlie, like your ideas are welcome. It's just a matter of where it fits in the final document. Won't be too much of an issue. But if you go to the minutes of the last Health and Human Services Board meeting, on which agenda it requests input to the planning process, you'll find an extensive documentation and answers to a lot of the issues that you're concerned with. It's very extensive information there. Pat?
Well, Alyssa said a lot of what I was going to say. We have an ad hoc committee versus standing because initially our chair wanted to have a committee on climate change. But from what I read, other than Monroe County, they kind of form and then they go by the wayside, and they don't have any budget and they don't have really any authority to compel anybody to do something. So except for Monroe County, where they rotate groups in, say related to ag or, infrastructure for power or something, then they kind of have a group that addresses something and then they rotate to something else. So that has worked. So we're a standing committee because climate change alone probably wasn't going to get people to show up and do something and have a budget and anything. So this is off the top of my head, and I made some notes, maybe what we could do is, so sustainability and climate change are two important issues, is that as I develop questions for my pieces on ag and forestry, certainly I can tie climate change and sustainability into the questions I ask and work on with the chapters I have. But maybe we make a list of these things that we think are really important things, community health on that list too. It just as a reminder that as we work on our sections and hold our public hearings, that we include these topics that we are trying to infuse, so we infuse them to the extent that we can. And then at some point, if we just really can't infuse something, well, then it would be clear that we need standalone. But that way, we're all trying to infuse the things that we as a group think are really important to hit. And so certainly the sustainability for what I have, absolutely, I shouldn't miss that. Same with climate change. For my two, I shouldn't miss that.
Let me throw in just another word to add to the record here is that just like talking about extreme weather is easier for some folks than talking about climate change, it can be easier to talk about resilience along with sustainability, because that's something that people do relate to is the ability to, be resilient. So any other thoughts? Charlie?
I just want to be clear. I have the capacity to prepare two things, sustainability and community health. I'm not doing anything on climate change, but if you want me to research climate change deep and bring the stuff here.
No, I think we're saying that climate change folds into that. When you talk about sustainability, your climate change folds into it.
Right, but it isn't the focus.
But climate change folds into almost every element
Yeah,
on the table.
it's
So
the backdrop to our lives now.
Yeah.
Right, I agree.
I think we can move on to subcommittee reports. See if we're doing any better this month than last month. Can we go around the table and see? That's starting with you, Charlie. I think you almost just did a subcommittee report in a sense. What's your Carissa, would we have the ability for subcommittees to put draft materials onto SharePoint? And how would they do that? So would Charlie send something to you then to be posted to SharePoint, or?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that.
Next up is Lissa, trends and issues.
Yeah, so I've been floating this idea around to different people who have let me know that they're really interested in the plan. And they want to come to like a quote meeting to review these, kind of go through them and say which ones are still relevant, and which ones are new. I was kind of waiting to get with regional planning because I knew they have a process for reviewing this too. So we talked earlier about a good process, but I do like what you said earlier, George, about each of our subcommittees or subgroups would also take these current issues that were identified and review them together. And then somehow look at those as a big picture to see what else pops up. Like I am now inundated with reading about AI and the impacts of AI development on communities in a whole bunch of invisible ways I never thought. But I think if we look at all of these new issues and opportunities that are brought up in the subgroups and then look at them as a whole, we'll get even more things that are going to present themselves in the next 10 years.
Liz, do you want to add anything more from the point of view of cultural resources and community facilities?
Not at this time, but thank you.
Ag and forestry, natural resources, Pat?
So I'm on the Farmland Preservation Committee with Charlie. We had another meeting yesterday. I think that update will go a long way towards background for the ag component as far as getting ready to go from there. The forestry, for whatever reason, a while back, the forestry plan didn't show up on the county website. That should be there now. That's, I don't know, around 90 pages or so. So I'll have to delve into that, but the next couple of weeks, I've got my own stuff out at the farm related to this stuff. I'm trying to keep up with doing that stuff. I'm ready for the snow to fly in. Um, I really am.
Okay, so next is transportation. I don't want to put Paul on the spot because Paul agreed to take the transportation part of this off my hands so I could deal with other stuff. But so far I had the highway committee got back to us and volunteered Tom Reamer to help with transportation representing highway. Dick Pufall represents the board to BART, and he is willing to participate in that process, as is there's a former board member, George Micka, who would be interested in participating. Tom Yankee, who's the chair of the Harbor Commission, will get someone from the Harbor Commission to participate. So you'll have a group of people from disparate sources, and I'll pass this information on to Paul for sources of inputs. But you want to add anything to that, Paul?
I've got a better blueprint of what my goals are after this meeting today, so thank you.
So then next is, I'm hanging on to utilities, by which we mean physical utilities like, electrical service, internet service, water utilities, sewage utilities, and I will be, Liz has provided me a number of names to contact to put together a subcommittee for input to that. And once we get the inputs from a number of these sources, then we'll put together a draft and bring it back for the committee here to look at. And then what comes after utilities is housing. Brad was excused today, so he's working on housing. Land and economic development is yours, Gary. How's that going?
Well, it's kind of funny when you read the plan, because I saw two issues that brought something else to mind. In the economic development, one says promote and leverage the county's assets, natural resources, which, we should do. It brings people to the county. The other one says provide maintenance and expansion of the tourism industry, which is good for us. But here's the situation that's developed in my area. In a 2-mile radius of my home, 10 homes have been sold in the last 3 years. Only one is a local resident. 9 of them are not year-round residents. We have a problem. I'm not knocking the people using these homes as a vacation stop, but that's not a good trend. It's not good for the schools. It's not good for the county, because these people are here. One of the homes, they're here maybe 3 weeks out of the whole year. It's a home off the market to the locals. I keep telling the young people to stay. They say, I can't find a house. Well, I know why now. So, I think it's just a long-range issue. We're not going to solve it today or tomorrow, but we have a problem with the homes being bought up by people who don't live here a full year. And it's scary when I look around my neighborhood. The houses are all empty for a few weeks out of the year. And these aren't cheap homes either. I mean, the one that just sold is $677,000. It's not like anybody local was going to buy that anyways, I don't believe. But it's a home that's off the market in 80 acres that's gone. So it's that's why we want to promote tourism. It's great for the county. It's great for the area. We get a lot of revenue from that. But I'm seeing more and more people come up here and like the area, but they don't want to live here year round. So somewhere we have to address that. And we're not going to solve that problem ourselves, but it's just something to think about as you see what's going on in at least the southern part of the county.
Okay, and moving on to risk and opportunities, that was you, Alyssa. Anything on that at this point?
No, I was kind of thinking that that discussion again would pop up in each of the subgroups, but also for brevity or efficiency, have the issues and opportunities combined with the discussion of the threats, because people will often say, here's an issue. Outside people are buying homes, short-term rentals or seasonal, and then here's a threat, right away. You said, here's a threat. Now I don't have a community. I don't have active people that are volunteering for my rescue operations or running for town board. So the issue often leads right to the threat. So I was thinking that really our conversation about those should somehow be a big picture of all of those things, not separately. If that makes sense.
Okay, I think we can move on then to our next agenda item, which is publicity and public participation plan allocation of tasks. Do we have that list there online? Not the committees. We need the public participation plan. Is it on the document, or do we have to go into the web page? Yeah, go to the public participation plan. And then scroll to the section toward the end that lists all the different mechanisms of communication. Okay, oops, up there. Focus. Yeah, there you go. That's those. Yeah, a little bit more. Okay, so this is a question of whether anybody is up for doing anything here. I talked to Mary McFetridge at Chamber of Commerce, Ashland Chamber of Commerce, and she's willing to distribute a newsletter for us. So do we have that draft newsletter there? I think it's, is it one of the other documents attached? No. Oh. Okay. Oh, that is the draft newsletter right there, isn't it? Okay. Okay, I just drafted a one pager to be an example of what could easily be done. So Chamber of Commerce has a broad dissemination, and we can use other mechanisms of dissemination as well. But Mary is very willing to be very helpful and suggested a lot of different, getting it out to other chambers in the area. And she'll do this for us. I asked to do it quarterly. I would just probably do a one pager. And this is what I would have put in the first one pager. It has to be reformatted so it looks more like a newsletter, but that would satisfy the legal requirement and also be useful to people into something that can be printed out, put up as a poster on bulletin boards, and start disseminating the information. So I'm happy to take on that tasks. So now we can go back to the list of the other tasks and see if anybody wants to sign up. We have what? Wait, it's hard to read for me to read from here. You got to scroll back upwards. And each one of the bold ones is a category. You see that? Each of the bold ones. So public mailings, I can hardly read those though. Can you make that a little bit bigger? Here we go. Thank you. So the categories are, that says public meetings. We know we're going to do that. Community display exhibit. Lisa, were you going to try something with that? Anything?
Sort of. I'm working with Blake on a bulletin board downstairs on the first floor outside the extension office. This is sort of a template, so I'll give people a copy of that. It's also a handout that we'll put attached to the wall, where people can give their public input, or we can tell them where to send it. They can either leave it with us. That's not mobile for public display, but it's our first shot at making something for the courthouse, you know. Then we'll try something that's mobile that could maybe go to the libraries or community centers or something like that.
Okay, so we've got public, Alyssa's working on public display. The next one is media releases. Erica, were you going to do something on a press release?
Sure. Do you have a deadline for me? And I think it would be really beneficial, as I brought up, I think the past 2 meetings, if we had some sort of image to go with it, if it's going to go in the newspapers. So if we have suggestions for an image, if we want to do the tree planting thing, it is coming on fall quickly now. I can draft anything at any time, but if we want it to actually be read, I think we should probably put an image with it.
Any suggestions along that line? I don't think we're going to have a tree planting this fall. It's going to be late. You don't want the tree to die the next. So that's probably not going to come about, would be my opinion. Anybody else thinks otherwise? You know, I think planting a tree in September or October is probably reduces the chance of success for the tree. Pat, you have any insight on that?
Well, some trees you can transplant in the fall, you know, once they go dormant, you can move them, but not all species do transplanting very well in the fall. So depend on the tree, and they should be dormant. And, but I think offhand, you know, a lot of people, they think of tree planting in the spring because that's when most people do it. My gut level reaction is a lot of people might say, why are they planting a tree in the fall? We might lose them just from, don't they know you do that in the spring? There is that bit of it. The courthouse, people recognize that. It just got redone. They, you know, Ashland County, the courthouse image has been around a long time, more than 100 years. We could put you and a few others in front with a picture.
Yeah, I can't think any other image, but you know, you could make a bit of news out of the idea that the courthouse facade was repointed this summer. And that was, you know, sort of part of planning for the future. Is there any other ideas for an image that Erica could put with the release? Listen.
I have one on, I think it's on my Facebook page right now, of the courthouse in the front. It's an aerial view, it might be from Edmund Row. And then you can see the city in the back and even some farmland back there. I'll link you to it,
That sounds great.
but I'm pretty sure that's on my Facebook right now.
Because I think we were thinking of doing a press release at the time of the signing of the contract with Northwest Regional Planning, if I recall.
It was just sent to us last week. It is now fully executed and signed.
Oh, okay, this will be timely then. Fantastic. Open house, that seems down the road. Web. What Carisha has done with the planning committee page on the Ashland County website seems to me to serve the purpose that we're looking for, unless anybody thinks we should go beyond that. We can add a lot to this, but I think Carisha's done a really good job so far.
Comprehensive _planning_committee.
So next on the list of communications devices is an emailing list. I don't know if we have anybody that has the capacity or wants to work on this. And I'm not sure what it would be. Any ideas? So I think that's one where, you know, we're still pondering. Next on this list was the newsletter, which I've signed up for. Handling written comments. We did a test of the link. So Carisha has on the website the link to send an email, comment or question in. And we tested it and it goes to myself and Erica and Dan. Do you get a copy of that, Lisa? Maybe not. So, I've definitely received, if someone sends in a question, Dan and Erica, but we've received none so far, but the link is there. It's on the website. All we have to say to people is, hey, the link is there. If you want to send in some input, go ahead. So that's for written comments, and public hearings seem to be in our future. And that is, then we come to the survey, which we've talked about, which is Emily. And we have the steering committee and focus groups, which are basically the subcommittees. That pretty much says we're doing almost everything that we said in our public participation plan, at least in some small way. Are there comments? So, social media, is social media on this list? I know we talked about it in the past.
I can show you this. I put this on my work page, an announcement of this meeting, and I'll put this on my Facebook page, and then I share it to, like, I don't know, 6 other Ashland-based sites, Facebook pages that says, here's a meeting. And I think I'm going to just use that picture over and over. It's a non-copyrighted antique postcard that I thought was really beautiful way to look at Ashland County, but kind of use that as a Facebook mini brand, so that hopefully people see that enough and they know it's Ashland County meeting.
We're going above and beyond. That's great. So we can move on to, we basically have handled communication mechanism updates unless somebody has a comment on it. And we can move on to status of township and committee inputs. I don't think we've made any headway there. I know I haven't. But if nobody else is interested, I can take that up. Anybody else interested in taking up the communication with the town boards? Okay, I'll take that assignment then. And then we move on to reviewing our progress versus our calendarized work plan. I think, Emily, what do you think?
I can pull that up for us. We have a sort of timeline by task, and I'm not so worried about whether or not we're within the month of the tasks, but so much the order of operations. So we're at the steering committee meeting number 1, the plan update overview. We didn't yet get to the issues and opportunities roundtable because we'll focus on the survey questions first. But that'll probably occur at our 3rd meeting, the review of the issues and opportunities. So it looks like we're just on schedule. And then we'll work on the updated draft plan chapters and put those onto the SharePoint.
Discussion or comments? If not, we can move on to item number 6, which is the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anybody online for public comment? See nobody present here in room, nobody on the line. We will move on to item number 7 is committee review of public comments. There having been no public comments, we don't have to review any. Lisa, do you have a comment?
I'll just throw one thing out. Another project I've been working on with UW-Madison's community research team is, we're calling it New North, New Neighbors. And it is a project that is interviewing people who have moved to Ashland County since 2020 to find out where they came from and why they picked Ashland County and why they moved, and then how they're integrating in whatever community they lived in. So it's part of a civic engagement research project. We had 120 people reply, which is really good for up here, but we narrowed it down to 90 or 93 actual surveys because people didn't finish or they screwed up. So if anybody's interested in that, I can send it around. Mainly, it's preliminary results right now, but I made a copy of one of the questions I thought you might be interested. What would you say are the biggest reasons why you decided to live in Ashland County? And then the second one was sort of an open-ended question about what else do you want to tell us about your community that we didn't ask you? And there are some really fascinating things that I think could help inform this project. I find one of the comments was, I find other transplants to Ashland are a lot more welcoming and more open to connecting with new people than with long-term residents. So they're working with each other, they're finding each other, but they're finding the long-term residents not to be that welcoming, which I think is kind of important information. Things that we know, we wish there was more for young people to do. It's definitely targeted to the retirement community. I'm concerned about water quality. You need better support for people in recovery. And then some really interesting things that I thought are what called acid-based community development, ABCD. If you have cool things in your community to live, they will come and find work. And here was an answer exactly to that. We wanted to raise our family in the country or a small town, and this area has a hospital, a college, a cooperative, and a Walmart. We're very sad that Northland closed this year because the college added something to the area that cannot easily be replicated, but we were looking for community assets like this. So I don't know if anybody's interested, I can email that to everyone when the whole.
Is that something you could share with us on SharePoint? That people,
They certainly could, or,
it sounds really relevant.
yeah, I think you'd enjoy hearing their comments. I'll work with you on how to share that with everybody. Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think we're up to other business. Do I have an attachment under other business? Yeah, okay, now just scroll until you see some yellow, okay. So I put this in under other business. It relates to the point that Charlie raised earlier and that Pat spoke to, is that this is a standing committee for planning for Ashland County. And if I have it here. So I've highlighted here a lot of things that have to do with quality of life, which are in the existing plan. And we had some comments earlier as to recreational facilities. And if you probably can't be able to read this. Can we blow this up a little bit, Parisha? Or is it Georgia stuck there? Yeah, just slowly scroll through and let people see what I've highlighted there. Maintain natural resources, continue stewardship for the county, resource opportunities, continue, keep going. What's this one that says investigate opportunities for providing additional camp experiences for county youth? Keep going. Stop. Develop potential for youth adult camping experiences. Go on. Encourage preservation and protection of environmental corridors for wildlife, water quality values, and habitat protection. Keep going. What's this one say? Amenities consistent with county rural character. Open up the county budgeting process to engage all members of the county board. improve county infrastructure, including county facilities, in order to make the county a more attractive and desirable community in which to live and start to grow a business. Going. Let me get through the rest of this, Pat. Here's one that really caught my attention. Parks. We have adequate parks, according to the plan. I just found that a little bit confusing. Keep going. What's this one? Parks and open space are an objective of the existing comprehensive plan. Keep going. Oh, oops, what did we miss there? Parks and recreation attractions in the county, like the White River Wildlife Area, south of Ashland. Keep going. And this is what's interesting. These are the fastest growing economic sectors in the state of Wisconsin. The second is amusement and recreation services. So that is supporting the attractiveness of Ashland County in terms of outdoor recreation, parks and facilities is something that is in our current plan. And my personal perspective is one that we have not paying enough attention to. So I think that's probably the last of it. Can you scroll a little bit further? Is there any more? Oh, what's that say? Recreational trails. There's a trails for recreation are an important component of local recreation opportunities, tourism. Trails in the county are shown in the transportation section document. I think maybe that's, oops, there's more. Yeah, keep going. There we go. Okay, issues. Lack of recreation facilities for youth, lack of recreation facilities for teenagers, lack of recreation facilities for elderly, provision of more passive, unorganized recreation opportunities, citizens wanting more public facilities, parks and shelters, more public facilities, trails, forestry committee. And is there any more? Okay, public access to streams. And I think that's probably the end of this. So my point is, this is the existing plan. This was put in place 10 years ago. And we are basically, I mean, we can only afford a little bit because we don't have a whole lot of extra budget, but it strikes me that this is the type of thing that a standing committee should be monitoring and looking for opportunities when they might exist. Does anybody want to comment or discuss the issue? Pat?
Some of that language in there, like open up the budget process to the entire county board. There's some things in here that were in the farmland preservation plan 10 years ago too. And so, I mean, literally verbatim. And so I think some of what we've looked at came from farmland preservation, and I don't want to say cut and paste, but some of it looks that way. But on the recreational opportunities, that would fall under forestry, the way the county is organized. And so it's really struck me my time on the board, having grown up in Bayfield County, you know, lots of lakes, parks, and recreational stuff. And you get to Ashland County, it took me a while to realize, you know, based on data, how much less you have, except for access to Lake Superior, how many fewer inland lakes, lack of parks relative to Bayfield County. And there's a big difference in the economies there. Bayfield County, because of the lakes and like double the county forest, they have a very different budget than we do. We're not going to get more lakes very easily, but we can put in more parks. But then we have to invest in those. And so one of the things I hope I get to on forestry is an inventory of all of the parks and trails that we have in Ashland County, regardless of which, you know, entity they're with, you know, city, village, you know, Copper Falls, you name it, and then look at gaps and opportunities there. So see what we can fill in. And I'm also cognizant of, you know, we have less snow on average as time goes forward, and more people are using those UTVs versus snowmobiles. So how do we connect recreational opportunities using those trails to places where people can stay, get food and beverage, you know, et cetera. I think we'll find there's some gaps in there, but it's going to take some investment on the front end for the county to do this. We'll have to have staff to do some maintenance. We'll have to figure out how to bring in some revenue to that. But from the budget perspective, if the county chose to make those investments, we could make some investments in that, which also means we say no to some other things. But I think we could invest, and I think the data and supports making more of those investments. And I also want to let Mr. Ortman over there, who's our liaison with the city on this committee, know that apparently our mayor is at times a little frustrated that some of the people who stay in Ashland as tourists don't spend all of their time within the city limits. So I told the chamber director a week or so ago in a phone conversation, literally said, good, we're making progress. Because the data on credit card usage that I found a few years ago shows that an incredible number of the people who go to places like Copper Falls up to Madeline Island and stuff, they're staying in the city of Ashland because that's where most of the rooms are. That's where a lot of the food service is. It also means that when they've had a little too much in the evening, our police department gets to deal with them, because that's where they're staying, they're here. But to the extent that we create more opportunities within the county, the city of Ashland benefits too, because you're getting the hotel tax. And its hotel tax is limited to the city limits. If someone in Mellon has, a place to stay, they don't charge the hotel tax, but the city does. So we all benefit by doing that. But I think there is a lot of opportunity on the things that George is pointing out here, and one of which is the Maxwell property on 118 that Northland College currently owns. And I think it would make sense for the county to take a hard look at acquiring that property and making it a park and a campground and the recreational opportunities that could go with it. So I think this is a really important point for us to think about of what we can do going forward that we haven't been doing otherwise.
Other comment, discussion?
And I just want to say kudos to the Village of Butternut for building a new campground.
I want to
Think about
add
that one.
that I think the report that Lisa mentioned about why people are moving here gives us a lot of insight, because I think probably it shows us that people are moving here for what they deem as good quality of life. And so whatever we can do to help make this a more attractive place in terms of quality of life for people who would move here and stay here will add to the betterment of the county for all of us who live here. So that's what we're thinking about. We're up to item number 10 is round the room summary comments. So I'm going to start with you, Pat. Last comments.
Boy, we got a lot of work ahead of us. No, I'll keep it short. We just do have a lot of work ahead of us.
Okay. Lisa?
I just want to say thanks to Emily and Autumn for being here and welcome to our process. And I really look forward to all the expertise you all are going to bring, help us with all these processes and questions.
You're here. Gary? Paul?
I thought everyone was just being cynical about a 3-hour meeting down to 2.5.
We're down to 2 hours and 23 minutes, so we're almost there. Erica?
Nothing today.
Autumn and Emily?
Just want to say thank you for working with us. We look forward to it.
Okay, last thing is to think about our next meeting in September, suggestions and limitations. Conflicts. Not 9/11. Okay. I will send out a doodle poll to see what works for people, okay? And I'll include you, Emily. All right? Is there a motion to adjourn? Charlie motions to
I'd like
adjourn.
to publicly put our thoughts and prayers together for Minneapolis as they deal with this unimaginable tragedy with that school shooting.
Okay.
I just want to put that on record.
Thank you, Liz. Do you have a second for adjournment?
Pat'll second.
Pat seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, for you being on the island, we've got a board